This is a daughter podcast where dads come to talk, think, and thrive with your hosts, Oscar and Blandon. Our mission is to cultivate a community of strong, mindful, and present fathers.
We want to curate honest conversations with all men, but especially those who have the honor of raising daughters.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daughter Podcast. I'm Oscar with Blandon over on the other side. How's it going, dude?
Man, it's going well. This week has been a long one, but it has been okay. I've been single dad again this week. My wife has been traveling. She's currently on tour, which is exciting enough, but I wanted to hold everything down here. So me and the girls have been on several adventures through getting to school, sickness, cleaning up the house, grocery shopping, the whole nine, and also I have work to deal with. And also I have my other responsibilities and the podcast. So, and growing a community. So it's been a long week, but I'm glad we've made it to the weekend.
Are we complaining, or are we just
No complaints. I'm just saying it has been. You asked me how I was doing, and and honestly, I don't think men have enough space to say how they're doing without feeling like they're complaining. Right.
Yeah.
So, no, I feel comfortable explaining to you and our viewers and listeners, like, it's been a long week, but I've enjoyed it for the most part.
Yeah.
The girls got to really bond, and like I say, we got to go on adventures, and just kind of juggling my job, podcast, them, schoolwork, homework, nighttime routine. Yeah, but we made it through.
All right. So you're tired. You're saying you're tired. So
I
you're
am.
tired.
Woo.
You're tired, and there you go. So you're yawning, and so we're talking about sleep today, particularly sleeping situations or arrangements that include our daughters.
Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit about this week. You and I talking about co-sleeping.
Right.
And that was an interesting conversation because we don't co-sleep. We've never co-slept. In fact, the whole, new baby thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was called, co-room slept. So we had a little bassinet or something next to the bed so that, my wife can get to the baby a little bit easier.
Right.
Or I can pick her up and change her diapers. But it was mostly twofold. My wife wanted to know the baby was good. SIDS is an issue, but also she nursed our daughters. So she wanted them around and make it easier on her.
Yeah.
But that was about it. And so we've never co-slept. In fact, it's been my sanctuary, like our sanctuary. So, we mentioned I like to keep the relationship with my wife as ours.
Okay.
We have our daughters, but that's kind of our space. And so we've never co-slept. However, my youngest daughter pulls at the heartstrings.
Of course.
So I don't know that she knows this, but my wife is like, well, she's our last one, and I want to, absorb as much as I can. And she gets away with things that I think that I know our oldest and our middle girl never got away with. But she'll just come over to bed, almost on the dot. Not every day, but when she does come over, it's like 2 a.m. She just climbs in and snuggles in there. Sometimes I hear her come in and I want to go take her back to her room, but, I'm prohibited from doing that. And then other times I don't hear her come in, and then I'll just wake up with some like heel, elbow,
of course,
forehead, either right in the small of my back, my neck, sometimes on my head, and then I just move her out to the side. So yeah, it's never been a thing that we've done. There's no judgment on my side. It's just not a thing we do. It's always funny to say it this way. They've always been in their crib when they were young.
Yeah.
And it always reminds me of like crate training for a dog, like a puppy, I know, it's weird. But the crib kind of looks that way, it's a little jail.
A little jail, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
When they stand up on it, they're just like holding on, it's like a little jail. Uh,
With a little,
so
with a little 10 by 4 feet,
that's
just one
right.
fork.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Oh man,
Uh,
terrible.
so yeah, so that we've always done it that way. Kept space there. But yeah, that's kind of what we've done. But you guys have a little bit different situation.
Yeah, yeah. So ours was a journey, right? As everything else, but yeah, we do co-sleep. And actually, now that my wife is away on tour, my daughters sleep with me every night. Um, they may start out in their bed or they either start out in our bed, but eventually we're all together sleeping in the same bed. And at first I was against co-sleeping. So we did some room sharing with my oldest and then a little bit of co-sleeping, but then we put her in her own room. But with my youngest, because my wife, breastfed her for a long time, she did co-sleep with us. She was in the bed. It was just much easier, and then we had two kids, we had two babies. So then we didn't want her waking up in the middle of the night to affect the oldest. And so it just kind of became a thing after that. But I think I was against co-sleeping in the beginning because I remember how I felt. I remember being 4 years old and wanting to go into my parents' bedroom. And I remember my mom telling me, like, hey, you can't sleep with us anymore. And so one night I woke up and tried to go into their bedroom. The door was locked. And so my mom tells the story. She was like, in the morning, she found me just kind of curled up at their door. And that's where I slept for the rest of the night. And then she just felt so bad after that. Right. But I just think I didn't want my girls to like feel that up front that, that feeling of like, you can sleep with us and now you can't. There's a time now
Right.
you can't. And so I was just kind of against it. Also, I did like you, I wanted like me and my wife's intimate and personal time just to be ours in the bed. But, as time went on, the girls would come in there, they would have a bad dream or I would end up like laying in their beds with them to get them to go to sleep. And then eventually it was just a lot easier for us to just have them in the bed with all of us. And yeah, we still have that tension where I'm like at the edge of the bed. Our baby is kind of spread out in the middle. My oldest is kind of clinging to me, and my wife kind of has a little area to herself. But yeah, for the most part, we do co-sleep and have us all in the same bed. Now, sometimes we don't. Like if we go on vacation, the girls love having their own bed at that point, or they love having their own room in like the Airbnb that we have or whatever, and they enjoy that. But if we're home, sometimes they'll sleep in their bed all night. Sometimes we'll wake up, they'll be with us, or sometimes they'll just start in our bed from the jump. So it's
Yeah.
kind of been a journey for us.
Don't get me wrong. I don't kick them out. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
no alarms going off at the door. And when they have bad dreams, they'll either come over and the whole nine. But I will do. It hurts more, but I will just be like, all right, let's go back to your bed. I'll go sleep with you. And then once they're asleep, I go back to our bed.
Right.
And we're established a lot of those separate things as they've grown up. My oldest knows, there's time for me and mom. It's just ours. Um, they don't always like it, but that's just one of those things. Is I want to show them that we have our time in
Okay.
order to take care of ourselves and to keep our relationship the way that we want to keep it, so that they see that as well, right? It's just
Right.
drawing some boundaries for them. But the whole co-sleeping thing, it just doesn't. It's never, and it may have been the way I was brought up too. It just that wasn't our thing, so
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is. It was never a thought of like, should we co-sleep? It was just kind of like, no, just go back to your bed.
Yeah.
That's how it's always been. And as I mentioned, the more and more, obviously my oldest got like no time in our room because we
Yeah.
were so focused on like, well, we're supposed to put her in her bed and blah, blah, blah. And then as the others came in, um, my wife was like a little more lenient and she, like I said, her heartstrings are probably a little bit easier than mine to manipulate. And so they'll come in and we'll give them more space with us. but I still think that it's important for us to keep our space, our time. My elders will be like, "Well, why do I have to go to bed at this time and you guys are still awake?" Because this is our time. We need
Right.
to just
Right.
relax,
Right.
right? And so that's part of it. When I travel, they'll try to get into my wife's bed as well.
Yeah.
And I've noticed she tries to keep them as well. Like, you can sleep here for a minute, but you're gonna go back to your bed. This is your dad's side of the bed. This is
Hmm.
the way it works. So maybe inadvertently, we've always kept that separate from them, just because, and that way it wouldn't ever make it awkward to be like, well, tonight you have to sleep in your bed because we have to do other stuff. Like, right? Like, it would just never make it awkward. And so we have our time, our space, and for lack of a better term, they may be none the wiser, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. So I think this whole thing, like, it piqued my interest because I really didn't think of it being nothing being wrong with it. Right.
Yeah.
I don't personally think anything's wrong with co-sleeping. But there was a story on Instagram and no, TikTok. It was a story on TikTok, and it was a guy and it was a dad, and he was sharing his co-sleeping. He was asking a question: does anybody else co-sleep together? And so he was American, Westerner. And so he's just explaining how him and his wife, his 6-year-old and 12-year-old, they share a bed together. They co-sleep. One of the daughters is deaf. And so they did it for safety, but then also, they bond or whatever. And what I was kind of alarmed with was how polarizing it was in the comments. Like, he was getting, oh, this is weirdo. This is giving incest, like all this other stuff. And while other people in the comments were like, no, co-sleeping is normal. Most of the other part of the globe co-sleeps together. It's just culturally what people do. And so I thought it would just be really interesting for us to talk about. And I did a little research, and it's true. Like, 67% of the rest of the world co-sleeps, has some kind of co-sleeping arrangement that happens in Asia and Africa, in Latin and South America. It's just is what it is. And what the guy was kind of explaining, to your point about having that intimate time with his wife, he was like, well, the girls are typically down by 7:30, 8 o'clock. And we're not confined to one bedroom in the house or one room in the house. Like, we have the rest of our house. And, they have like 3 or 4 hours before they go to bed, come to bed with the girls. So, they share their intimate time, probably on the couch in another room or something like that. But then, after they have their time together, they just come in the bed and sleep with their girls. Um, but what I also thought was interesting is that if a mom does the same thing with her son or even her daughter, she's just kind of seen as, oh, she's just a mama bear. She's just a little overprotective. But when he said he did it, he was a weirdo. Then there was something wrong with him. And I feel like it's just a really sad double standards that when dads want to bond with their children, especially their daughters,
Mhm.
it's seen as something perverse. But when moms do it, it's seen as something noble and something that we should be trying to reach and attain. So,
Yeah, I mean, but we know that there's double standards across the board, right? I mean, I don't know if I want to use the right word, being accepted, but it's an accepted double standard.
mm,
Then it starts getting weird, like you said. I say weird meaning like it starts going into the negative very quickly when we start talking about those close relationships or close spaces with a father daughter, for example. And it's unfortunate because we hear a lot of real negative, uh, inappropriate stuff from some of those situations, but I'm fairly confident it's the lower amount of that, right? It's the low percentage of that that is really highlighted. And so because of that low percentage, you're looking at a father asking because he's probably thinking the same thing. Is like, is this weird? Is this appropriate? Is this inappropriate? Like, you know, maybe he doesn't feel that way, but maybe he has to question it because of societal norms.
mm,
And so that double standard is there, whether we like it or not. I mean, we talked about many double standards that fathers have, particularly um, in relationship with their daughters.
Yeah.
So it's one, I think it's one that you're highlighting now, which almost seems silly, but there is also that question that I'm sure you and all fathers will ask, like, okay, cool, maybe I will do co-sleep, but at what stage do I no longer co-sleep? At what stage does that get uh, detrimental to the psychology of my child, right? We're not even talking about, I mean, I'm not talking about inappropriateness or molestation or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, at what stage do we look at certain things that we do as parents? And I think we all ask ourselves this for many, many things, right? At what stage is what I'm doing um, maybe psychologically hindering to my child, their growth, their development, their understanding of the world? Like, how does that go, right? So it's kind of the same concept as if you help your children a lot, you're really hindering them. Well, I think there's some truth to that, depending on what you're helping them with, right? If you're, we talked about this before, if you're solving every problem, I
Right.
mean, you're truly psychologically hindering your child, right? Because then they won't be able to solve problems. And so it's a very fine, fine line. And I think this situation, there's also a fine line in, again, I'm not even going into the inappropriate side. I'm just thinking, at what stage does what I'm doing psychologically hinder my child, right? Is it a safe space, or is it now just too safe where they can't deal with being afraid of the dark, right? Like, oh, well, you're afraid of the dark. Well, let's take you over. Let's look around. Let's show you that there's nothing to be afraid of, right? Let's face that fear. Or those little things is the things that I think about is, all right, so if I do this, what am I not doing? If I'm helping them with this, what am I not helping them do? So for my girls, we always talk about, hey, you're afraid of something? Let's go face it. Let's go figure it out. Um, Again, within reason, right? I don't say, hey, you're afraid of that dog? Go in front of that dog. That's probably not a good idea, right? But there's there's
Yeah.
limitations. And when we're talking about this, I think for me, one of my biggest things with my girls growing up is, like, the dark is not, if there's no problem with the dark. In fact, physiologically, we have to sleep in the dark. My girls want lights all over the place. They want, like, there's these little lights back here. They'll turn on. They have a lamp, a night light, a little uh, squishmallow thing that has a light. If it was up to them, they would just have lights all night. But that's not good for them, for their body, their brain, like everything, for them to sleep. So there's a middle ground where I'm like, no, you can't sleep with us, but I'll get you this nightlight, and then I'll sleep with you for a little while, and then I'll show you that there's no danger here in the house, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're in a safe space. And so that's been a big part for me um, in keeping them in their space, in their room, but also being there for them. So yeah, yep, you're afraid of the dark, got it. I'll go with you. We'll check it out. The whole, so there's something in my closet. I'm like, cool, let's look at the closet. Let's open it up. So there's that, and then for me, there's always also been that relationship base. Like, I want to make sure my daughters know that my relationship with my wife is a sacred relationship, and that I love you all with all my heart, but I love your mom first because she was first, right? And she, the reason you guys are here.
Yeah.
And so keeping that is also important for me. And I feel that my wife feels the same as well, because we keep this is our space. Like, this is our room. You know, we might watch a movie all together in bed, but then it's like, all right, time for bed. You guys go to your room, go to sleep, and then we keep that to ourselves. So again, there's no judgment on my part. It's just kind of like where we've kind of veered into, which is, we have a space for us. You know, the rest of the house is yours, but this space is just mom and dad's. Like, this is just our.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand that. I hear that. And I think I thought that way at first. And then I just saw the benefit. I could see the benefits of them, like, in the bed with us, feeling safe. And then just, I, I think their sleep is a lot better. And I also think, like, through the research I've done, like, bedwetting incidents go down, bad dreams go down. That there's less of this paranoia. And they get used to sleeping. So my girls now need it completely dark because I need it completely dark to sleep.
Right,
Like
right.
I cannot sleep with now. My wife, she is the culprit. She is the offender, and I've been fighting her for years. So when we first got married, there was absolutely no TV in the bedroom. I was like, please, I cannot have a TV in the bedroom. I don't want it.
Yeah.
It really affects my sleep. Like, and with me and sleep, it has also been a journey. So I'm like, ugh, cannot have this TV on and fall asleep and this, that, and the other. And so for many, many years, we did not. And she's finally like slowly crept in a TV into the bedroom now. And I'm like, because, there are those times where, like you said, we watch a movie in there or, I think we put the TV in there because she was sick.
Oh,
And
right.
then the TV just stayed in there and never just kind of left. But, it was.
You liked it too. You got in there,
I
you're watching
I
some show.
do not I do not like it in there for sleeping purposes. Now, for like if we're like watching an old movie or we're watching a series or a documentary together, I like being on the couch with her. I like being on the
Yeah.
couch and having that time. I don't
Separate
really like.
spaces, right? It's a separate space.
Yeah, but I'm like, I feel like it's an appropriate space for that. It's
Yeah.
appropriate space for the TV. Like
Yeah.
bedroom. I feel like we go here, we change clothes, we go to sleep. I mean, it could be all in one deal. But anyway, nevertheless. So TV's in there. So she's the main offender of the TV being on. And I'm like, turn this TV off. Or put the sleep mode on. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. I think my wife still, just because she kind of is like, yeah, it's fine. But then sometimes she's like, no, I just kind of don't want the knee to my back or,
Yeah.
when the girls are sleeping. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because I just cuddle up with one of the girls and I'm good. Like if I'm cuddling up with my youngest, she stays in that position the whole time. Right. Or my oldest, she stays in that position the whole time. I think my wife is like, she's not a person of like, we're cuddling and we're sleeping. She's like, okay, cuddle for 20 seconds. And then I'm hot and I need to go to sleep over here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a problem because then the girls spread out and do all those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hear that you want to have that separate space. I just think you only get that for such a small amount of time with them,
Yeah.
such a small amount of time where they want to be able to do that, where they want to spend that quality time with you, where they want to actually sleep with you and wake up with you and do all the things. And so it's like for a blip, right? Because I know soon enough they'll be wanting to do their own thing and maybe we'll spend less and less and less time together. So
Right.
I really don't mind it. And then these are the only children I'll ever have. These are the only girls I'll ever have. And I'm like your wife. I just kind of want to stoke that up because I understand that. I feel like the weight of that is on me. They're growing up. And before I know it, there will be all these times they'll be gone and they'll be gone forever. So.
No, I get that. I think, like I said, I think I've softened up a little bit. But there's also the thought of like, maybe your wife wants a space for her with you only. Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, you're with the girls, you put your time into the girls. I'm not saying that you don't with your wife, but
right.
But then at the end of the day, it's like, this is just mommy space with me. And so again, maybe that's something that she wants and doesn't, don't bring the girls in here because this is our space. I don't know that at this point, I don't know that my wife feels like that anymore because just like you said, she's really realizing how quickly this is going. Our youngest is now 4. So it's moving, right? So I get that.
Right.
But I do know that she attempts to keep that space for her and I.
Yeah.
She doesn't, the baby doesn't just sleep with us, right? It's just, she goes in her bed and it just, of course, as I mentioned, coincidentally, I feel like she has an alarm, like, oh, time to go to mama's bed. And she goes.
Right.
So she'll go in there, not every night. I venture to say maybe like 30 to 40% of the nights she'll go in her room, but not every night. But I think it's important to at least consider that maybe she wants that space for her and you only, right? Because you may be spending the majority of your effort and time with your daughters and for your daughters, which which she should, right? Or maybe that's what she wants. And maybe that's what I want. That's probably it. It's like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's like, hey, well, this is our time here, because unless we go on a date, like it's just always the girls, dinner is based on what do the girls want. Everything's relatively based on what the girls want. Right. So
Right.
maybe that's separate.
Yeah. And for a large amount of time, well, not large, well, I guess significant. I did work the night shift. So then I slept apart from the entire family. Right. So
Oh,
my
yeah.
sleep schedule was completely different than their sleep schedule because I
Yeah.
was gone at night, sleeping during the day. So I guess that probably also leads to me not minding being
Yeah.
able to sleep with all of them and spend time with all of them. And then also I just think I know who my wife is, and her battery is charged by alone time.
Right.
Very much kind of like you.
Yeah.
She's the only child, and she is an extrovert or introvert, so she can do well in social settings, but really she just does well by herself. So, I'm glad she lets me in the bed. You know what I'm saying? So now adding two more little bodies into the
Yeah.
bed is
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, it may be a
Look,
little overwhelming sometimes,
yeah, it's a lot.
but
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes she needs her own space. I'm sure I get on her nerves because I am an extroverted extrovert, right? So um, we're always talking, and so we're sharing these moments and spaces and times. But I know for the most part, she's like, I just need to go and get my coffee over here and spend some time alone,
Right.
and I respect that. And so sometimes I'll just like, okay, girls, not tonight, but for the most part, if I'm here by myself with them, they're sleeping with me. I don't care.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
my energy is needing the other people around me. So
All right. How does everybody else do sleeping? Do you co-sleep? Do you not co-sleep? What do you think? Send that information over to conversations@daughterpodcast.com. Also, at the bottom of our episodes, you'll see send us a text link. That'll send the information straight to us so we can now discuss that with the rest of the community. Speaking of the community, we have the Daughter Network on Mighty Networks. That will also be in the show notes. Click there, get into the community, help build it as we are growing that community, a space where dads can talk, think, thrive all together and learn from each other. We have that. And also our social media is mostly Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, mostly Instagram, and on YouTube. And you can find all of that on www.daughterpodcast.com, where you can also listen to episodes and find your favorite platform to listen to our podcast, including YouTube, where you can watch the video podcast. So with all that, I am going to say bye from where I'm at. Until the next one with Blandon on the other side. See y'all later.